The content you're about to hear may be graphic in nature. Listener discretion is advised. This is True Crime XS.
You know, the closer it gets to Christmas, the more I try to keep it under certain times, and I just never do it. And then sometimes it's a really short episode that I'm like, yes, it'll be 40 minutes, but then it's an hour and a half later and we're still talking and I'm trying to wrap it up. And I think that's particularly true for the holiday episodes because I know there's going to be so much to edit.
I just want to point out, typically, if you have a time frame, I try to stay within it, but I always have so much more to say about stuff.
Yeah, I know. And this one, so this is crazy. The one we're doing today, just from a perspective of material that's available, if you go on Wikipedia, which I thought about updating the Wikipedia entry, and I stared at it for a really long time, and then I was like, you know what? I don't think everybody understands what happened here, and I don't really want to be the one trying to edit it because all your stuff is visible in Wikipedia, and I just didn't want people to come at me on this particular case because, in my opinion, this case is so horrible. It's very tragic, and the way that they sort of excuse the government for it all is wild to me. And I know I use that word a lot, but this is genuinely one of those things that when I look at it, I'm like, what in the world? So I'll go ahead and throw this out there for people. If this case is something you want to look at, there's 100 pages of it that you can go and read. I think it's at oag.ca.gov. I know that if you go and look for the girl's name, you'll find it. So this case is from 2022. It's a couple years ago. You and I talked about it right as it was happening, in kind of real time. But the report that I am using as my source today was not actually released to the public until March of 2025. So I got it in March of 2025. I sat on it for a while and I finally read it. 'Cause I knew what was going to be in it, kind of. I was interested to see the take from how many investigators had put this together. I wasn't disappointed in the report itself. I did feel like it was a pretty thorough job. I was a little disappointed in the kind of the weak recommendations they made. This is the case of the taking of Savannah Graziano. And I say that because it has so many elements to it. And I'm going to kind of give a summary and then I'm going to go through in detail what happened. And, we're doing holiday episodes. I swear there's some lighter fare coming up. I know some of the stuff we covered in the last couple of days in terms of the holidays has been pretty dark. This one more so than usual. The coverage for this, I think at one point Dateline maybe covered it. I know NBC News did. I know it has a Wikipedia entry that's a couple paragraphs long. But this is about a 15-year-old girl. And I was absolutely flabbergasted at how this went down. I will say California has an interesting thing going. So there's an assembly bill in California that was signed into law back in September 2020, so during the pandemic, It became effective July 1st, 2021. It was an interesting bill. It's called Bill 1506. And the California Department of Justice, or the DOJ in California, they're required to investigate all incidents of use of force anytime an officer is involved in causing the death of an unarmed civilian. And they specify in there that shootings are included. These are incredibly controversial issues at times. So making this law and kind of codifying it basically said that there is a body within the Department of Justice in California that will investigate and review for potential criminal liability any incident involving an unarmed civilian that has a confrontation with law enforcement. Weirdly, like the person that we're really talking about here is sort of collateral to all of that, because the way they justify it is that there's another person involved. They do give very interesting background. We can summarize this in just a couple sentences. So I'm not going to do that. I am going to go into detail because I feel like it's worth it and it's important. We go back to September 26th of 2022 to take a look at this and how it all unfolds. And it is a taking. There are deaths involved here. I know it's the holidays, but there are deaths involved in this particular hostage taking. And it's sort of an unusual situation in some ways. And in other ways, it's really so rudimentary. It's like very kind of run-of-the-mill. But on September 26th of 2022, at around 7:30 in the morning, a man named Anthony Graziano got in an argument with his wife, Tracy Melinda Martinez. They were arguing in front of a school in Fontana, California called Cypress Elementary School. So this argument takes place inside and around a white 2017 Nissan Frontier pickup truck. For the record, a big chunk of this is caught on the school surveillance camera, but it's at a distance. Not great video. According to witnesses at the time, they saw Anthony Graziano punch Tracy Martinez during this argument. So Tracy Martinez is in the front passenger seat. In the back seat is their 15-year-old daughter. So Tracy Martinez and Anthony Graziano, they have a 15-year-old daughter named Savannah. So Miss Martinez is attempting to get out of this pickup truck, but she's clearly in the video, even from a distance, being restrained. She opens the front passenger door. She puts her feet outside of the truck, but you can't tell exactly what's happened, but it looks like the top half of her body is unable to get out of either like something that's going on with the seatbelt, or more realistically, the driver, Anthony Graziano, has reached over and is holding her in place. So in the video, you see Savannah Graziano get out of the truck's back seat, and she closes the door of the vehicle and then returns to the back seat of the truck. They say there's audio. I haven't heard the audio on this video. The only version of it I have seen is silent. But they say that Miss Martinez, Tracy Martinez, is heard on the video repeatedly screaming, "No, no, no." So during this argument, Anthony Graziano backs the Nissan Frontier up and hits a Honda Odyssey that's driven by a person that's referred to throughout all of this as Witness 1, who has his 9-year-old son that he's dropping off at Cypress Elementary School. 15 is way too old for elementary school, so we know at this point that Savannah is really just a passenger in all of this. She's not actually going to school. So after he backs into this Honda Odyssey, Anthony Graziano drives away. That person follows him in the Odyssey. And the Nissan Frontier is stopped, and Anthony Graziano gets out of the vehicle, and he brandishes a black semi-automatic handgun. And according to witness accounts, including Witness 1 and his son, He fires twice and strikes the Honda Odyssey. There is some video of this. It's some kind of home security video. It might even be like a doorbell camera. There are different angles of this that we can see. They're not super clear. But while we're able to see what's happening, it's clear that whoever is driving the Frontier gets out and is shooting at the Honda Odyssey. And while this is happening, Tracy Martinez gets out of the Nissan Frontier and runs.
Right. And so that was right after he backed up into it, right?
Right. Like they're a brief distance away. So they're out of the first camera frame into a new camera frame. I think basically they pull out into a neighborhood that's next to the elementary school, and they're kind of between the two.
Okay.
It's not very far.
And just think to yourself, like, what that would be like. You're just, I don't know what witness one and his son saw, right?
Right.
But all of a sudden you got hit by a car and now you're being shot at.
Right. And seeing, I don't know how to explain it to people. I'm sure there's some people in the audience that understand this. Seeing a gun pulled out and shots fired in public is jarring, particularly when it's like 7:30 in the morning and you're at your kid's school dropping them off.
Yeah, it'd be jarring for me about 10 minutes later when I finally realized what happened.
Right. So while she's running away, so Tracy Martinez has gotten out of the Frontier's passenger seat. She's running because Graziano is focused on shooting at the Honda Odyssey. And then suddenly Anthony Graziano, he turns towards where Tracy is running and he fires a handgun in her direction. She is struck by gunshots and she falls to the ground. And Anthony Graziano gets back into this Nissan Frontier and he drives away. Savannah Graziano is still in the backseat of the car. So Fontana Police, the officers that are responsible for this jurisdiction, they arrive. And Tracy Martinez identifies Anthony Graziano as the person who had shot her. She is transported to the hospital where she's treated, but she subsequently dies of her injuries. And the Fontana Police Department talks to the district attorney and secure a warrant for Anthony Graziano's arrest. The California Highway Patrol then activates the Amber Alert system, and they put one of those brightly colored flyers out, or bulletins, that sort of briefly details what's happening. And all it says is California Highway Patrol, Amber Alert, child abducted / taken, armed and dangerous. And then it says suspect, and it has all the particulars for Anthony Graziano, who was described as 5'4" tall, 150 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes, wearing a white shirt, dark shorts. He's 45 years old. Says he's driving a 2017 Nissan Frontier with a California plate 44305G2. And it says this Amber Alert has been activated by the CHP on behalf of the Fontana Police Department. And then it describes under the word victim, Savannah Graziano, 15 years old, 5'2" tall, 110 pounds, with brown hair, brown eyes, and unknown clothing. And it has multiple what looked to me to be like lifetime photos from traffic cameras and probably surveillance cameras of the Nissan Frontier, like the exact Nissan Frontier. And then it just says at the bottom, Savannah Graziano was last seen with her father on September 26, 2022 at approximately 0734 in Fontana in San Bernardino County. In this report, they've gathered all the social media that went out from the different police information officers, and those expand a little bit, like with pointing out some of the stickers that are on the car. They describe this as a domestic violence incident that left Cypress Elementary School temporarily placed on a lockdown as a precaution. So there's some unrelated people here that the Fontana police go and speak to. Specifically, they talk to Anthony Graziano's sons. They label them as F1 and F2. And we learned that from the sons, which calling them F1 and F2, the reason for that in case people just want to know what that stands for. Like the W1 is witness 1, F1, F2 is family member 1, family member 2. So they learned, the police, from these family members that Anthony Graziano had called each of the sons a short time after he killed Tracy Martinez, and he told them he killed Tracy Martinez, and he somehow indicated to the two of them that he was going to kill himself, and then he hung up the phone. Both sons immediately started trying to call their father back, but Anthony Graziano had turned off the phone. Savannah Graziano answered one phone call and said that they had to go. The other phone calls to the two of them went unanswered. So the police investigators that come to the scene to investigate like sort of this ongoing incident, and I think it's happening where Tracy Martinez is off to the hospital and being treated, so we don't know for sure that it's like she's dead yet. But they're treating it like the potential is there, and that's why they're interviewing the family members so quickly. They find out from the sons that Anthony Graziano has a storage unit in Fontana. So they obtain a warrant for the storage unit, and they conduct a search. And I don't know how quickly this all happens, but I imagine it's pretty fast based on like some of what we're about to talk about. In this storage unit, whenever they go in there, the officers find 6 rifles, 3 handguns, 2 rifle lower receivers, so like the bottom parts of guns that are missing the barrel and some of the fire control pieces. They find over 10,000 rounds of ammunition, 14 smoke canisters, 20 rifle and handgun magazines, a night vision scope for one of the rifles, and a bulletproof vest. So I'm sure that doesn't give them a lot of positive vibes to know that this guy has that many things. But even with that many firearms, that many essentially weapons and accessories, hopefully they're all here, right?
Right.
So the day unfolds kind of strangely from there, and we pick up again Tuesday, September 27th at around 10:15 a.m., where we meet witness number 2. So witness number 2 is the manager of a pilot travel center over in Boron, Boron. According to this witness, they see Savannah Graziano walk into the mini mart within the pilot travel center gas station. She buys 2 sodas, she pays for their gas, and there's a customer there who gets the title Witness 3. That customer says to the manager, "That's the girl from the Amber Alert." So the manager sees Savannah get into the white Nissan Frontier and sees the vehicle leave the pilot travel center and travel north on US Highway 395. And that's in the direction of Highway 58. The manager calls 911 and explains what they just saw. This is 10:15 a.m. At 10:25 a.m., another witness described as Witness 4 sees the white Nissan Frontier they believe matches the vehicle described in the Amber Alert, crossing through the intersection of Highway 395 and Highway 58. And he dials 911 and reports that he has seen the vehicle, and he calls out the license plate. So the information about these 2 sightings of this Nissan Frontier and potentially Savannah Graziano is passed on to the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. And so that happens at 10:34 a.m. So from the moment this starts to the time that there's a be on the lookout is about 20 minutes. It's between 10:15 and 10:34. So deputies assigned to Apple Valley and Barstow are the ones who receive this information. And At 10:37 a.m., San Bernardino Sheriff's Department Sergeant Darren Gilmore is dispatched to this call, and someone, I don't know if they mean him or someone working alongside him, they request air support, meaning at this time in this location, it would be a police helicopter. So by 10:45 a.m., Darren Gilmore and a canine detective named Michael Chavez, they have seen the white Nissan Frontier with the correct license plate, even though they got like some of the numbers from witness 4, who he doesn't give the exact plate, but he gives them a piece of it. They see it traveling eastbound on Highway 58, and they attempt to catch up with the car. So the car then enters I-15 southbound, and 2 additional deputies, David Johnson and Kimberly Cabulin, they're about 3/4 of a mile or so behind Sergeant Gilmore. So Darren Gilmore continues following the Nissan Frontier, and he's on the radio. He's broadcasting his following. He lets dispatch know that they're passing the Linwood Road exit, and Detective Chavez, the canine officer, broadcasts that he is near the Outlet Center Drive exit. So by 10:52 a.m., Sergeant Darren Gilmore broadcasts that he is going to attempt to catch up with the Nissan Frontier, but that the speed they are pulling is over 113 miles per hour. At 10:53 a.m., the radio call indicates, coming from Darren Gilmore, that shots have been fired. It says, shots fired, taking rounds, shots fired. So the way that we are clear on that is it's recorded in real time by what's known as a belt recorder, which is secondary to a body-worn camera. At this time, though, the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department did not utilize body-worn cameras. So this would have been just audio that we got. And on this audio, you can hear him broadcasting, talking into dispatch. You can hear his responses. And according to this investigation, you can hear the sound of impacts on his patrol car. And after all this is over, inspecting Sergeant Darren Gilmore's patrol vehicle, they're going to find out that he has 2 bullet holes in the upper right windshield. So I don't know if they mean looking up the car from the nose or like from inside. I picture it as being from inside because of the location of the bullet holes, but I didn't see them on the upper right. For visual reference, for people who can't see all the pictures I've gone through, if you're looking out the windshield where the mirror is, what I saw that looked like bullet impacts is on the right side, like kind of where a passenger would be seated.
That's what I see.
Okay.
So I think they're talking about from the driver's seat.
From the driver's seat, okay. So the next broadcast is watch out, watch out, watch out. And then Sergeant Darren Gilmore over the radio addresses Michael Chavez. He says, "Canine, are you okay?" And he says, "I'm going to check on the canine now. He's off in the desert." So he says, "Canine 5, shots fired. I'm code 4. And again, on this belt recorder, we can hear the sounds of gunfire that's been captured. I think this capture comes from Detective Chavez's belt recorder. He has now also said that he fired rounds at the Nissan Frontier, because when this is happening in real time, officers talking out loud and over the radio, they're trying to indicate everything they're doing to capture it for exactly this type of examination after the fact. We do not know if any of the rounds he fires during this time strike the Nissan Frontier, but when they go back and examine Michael Chavez's vehicle, it had 3 vehicle holes in the bumper and the radiator. That vehicle ended up being disabled on I-15 South. about a quarter mile south of the Outlet Center Drive on-ramp in Barstow, which came up in the course of the broadcasting. So at this point, Sergeant Gilmore pulls off I-15 and he checks on Michael Chavez. Michael Chavez, so Sergeant Gilmore, Detective Chavez. Detective Chavez leaves the disabled vehicle and he buddies up with Sergeant Gilmore and gets into his front passenger seat. So they continue on I-15. The broadcasts coming over the radio are now coming from Michael Chavez. He says, the suspect is shooting out of the back window through the open back window. He asked dispatch to notify the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department's Victorville station that the suspect is heading towards them, and he requests that Apple Valley Station deputies respond to I-15 to the freeway perimeter. At 11:57 a.m., Deputy Johnson reported that the Nissan was passing vehicles on the right shoulder. Sergeant Darren Gilmore broadcast, just for info, 2 rounds impacted my front windshield. We're still in. And the airship for San Bernardino Sheriff's Department responds, can we confirm if there is a child in the car? Sergeant Gilmore responds, 2 people in the vehicle, and dispatch advises medics to stage and to respond upon confirmation that someone has been wounded by gunfire. All right, I'm going to pause for just a second. So we're 24 hours out from what is essentially a cold-blooded murder of a mom in front of an elementary school. And we're about an hour and 30 minutes out where we have potentially witnessed the 15-year-old child. She's mentioned in the 911 call from the Pilot Travel Center manager. In my opinion, that is confirmation there's a child in the car. What do you think of all this so far?
Well, I remember this happening.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the number one things about this entire situation would be to save the child, right?
That's what I think, yeah.
And so otherwise, like, what are you doing? Like, he's got to stop at some point, right? Yeah. I mean, and so I find it a little bit odd that wasn't emphasized, right?
Yeah.
In fact, he responded, there's 2 people in the car. Well, that doesn't answer the question.
I don't think he knows, though. I don't think he's had a close enough look at what's happening to know who's in the car.
Okay, and that's possible, right?
Yeah.
And in that type of situation, now we got a lot of information just now, and maybe you can kind of sum it up, or maybe I need to look. But right now, they're chasing a vehicle that's had a BOLO on it, right?
As part of an Amber Alert.
As part of an Amber Alert.
Yeah.
And so that's what they know.
That's what they know.
I'm talking about like within the field. Now, the fact that there's an Amber Alert, I mean, right?
Right. I mean, this is not 1995. Like, like everybody has active computers. Even though these guys don't have body cameras at the moment, there are recording devices going. I believe there's dash cam footage. There's multiple audio recordings going on. There are phones, there are radios. There's a lot of conversation happening that we have record of, even just on the radio. So they should know, in my opinion, dispatch probably put a note in that the whole reason we're doing this is not just that the car's been cited, but also that the girl was cited with the car at the initial witnesses, like what made the initial witness call it in at the Pilot Travel Center.
Right. Okay. So that's sort of where I'm at with it. I realize maybe they can't tell for certain, but it is a 15-year-old, right?
Yeah. Not
a little kid. And it seems like, I hate to compare them to like ants marching, but like, it seems like in the chaos of all this, a lot of people don't know what's going on.
I would agree with that. And like, so far, we've really...
And that's alarming, right?
It really is, because these are the people who are definitely supposed to know.
Well, right. And all they're trying to do is like stop the vehicle at whatever cost, or I don't even know what they're thinking.
Well,
But you have to balance that out and wonder to yourself, like, what are we doing? Like, is there a kid in the car? Well, if there's not, what are we doing?
right. So at this point, that's a really good point. And that's sort of what happens in the terms of this report. So we've been following the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department's deputies. Now, the report gives us a slight backup here so that we can understand how some of those ants who were marching came to be. And one of the first things that we get is, like, even though we're at 11:57 in the timeline, we go back a little bit and we add the California Highway Patrol. So at 11:01, the California Highway Patrol begins broadcasting, and they are recording audio and video. Even though the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department doesn't have body cameras, there's a lot of audio and video on these CHP officers and in the helicopter. So this helicopter is marked H-82, and that's how dispatch reads it as a unit. They confirm at 11:01 that they see the Nissan Frontier, and they broadcast that they are overhead, and they point out they're recording everything that's happening. The Nissan Frontier at this point in time is on I-15 South. It's just before what's known as the Dale Evans exit. At the same time, we get that Deputy Johnson. He comes over the radio, and CHP hears him saying that the suspect is continuing to fire out of the back windshield, which dovetails with what Sergeant Darren Gilmore said. He said that there's multiple shots fired and that they're coming up on the right-hand shoulder, continuing to fire. He says there are at least 2 occupants, and they're continuing to fire out the back window. So that is part of what the California Highway Patrol gets in terms of joining this and getting the radio coverage. At 11:02 a.m., Deputy Johnson, David Johnson, he broadcast out, I believe he may have shot my vehicle once or twice. And this is going to be confirmed later on, that his patrol vehicle has at least 1 bullet. I can't tell if there's a strike or a ricochet in there, but I can tell you that at this time, Deputy Johnson requests of the California Highway Patrol that they provide an airship that has, quote, lethal coverage. And I've never heard of that. It's absolutely terrifying to me to think of a police helicopter going along, which I guess this is the standard, with some kind of weapon on board that's going to be shooting from the sky. Because God knows.
That's exactly what I envisioned, like just taking out everybody on the highway.
Well, I mean, they have troubleshooting. Obviously, none of the people here, I don't know who else are returning fire.
They shouldn't be.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, were they?
I don't know yet.
All I've heard is them talking about being hit.
That's what I've heard too. And clearly nobody's dying because there's not a lot of aim going on here.
Well, right. And they said that he's firing out the back of the vehicle.
Right. Right.
And he's driving.
Correct.
My thought on all of that, it's very great excitement for movies, right?
It is, but it's absolutely terrifying when it's happening like in real time, in real life, in a real world environment.
Right. But it's also the chance for like every single law enforcement officer to use all the training and experience that they got. I mean, training, not experience, really. Training experience all at once, right? They get to use all these things they never used.
It kind of is, yeah.
It kind of pumps them up, and it's just... Everybody needs to be focused on the same outcome, right?
Right.
I do think it's possible that the wanted homicide suspect drowned out the Amber Alert.
It could be, yeah. I mean, it could be. It could be they thought that they were rescuing someone, but it's going to get weirder here in a second. 11:03, we get a broadcast from a deputy who was in pursuit. His name is Kent Watson. He's partnered with a deputy named Daniel Gonzalez. They broadcast that the suspect vehicle's in the number 1 lane, southbound on 15, and that they just fired a shot out the passenger window. So we're following it down 15. At 11:04, the deputies behind Darren Gilmore They report that there's something going on inside the Nissan, particularly Deputy Kimberly Cabulion. She recognizes that something has happened. And at this point in time, we have 2 helicopters involved. So...
Oh, was the other one the lethal force one?
Yeah, so we now have in the air...
Do we know that for sure?
Yeah.
So they did respond.
So they come over the radio at this point. So in the air, we have the California Highway Patrol airship. And according to this report, which I believe has been vetted for mistakes, there's a second airship, helicopter, and that's San Bernardino Sheriff's Department's helicopter. It broadcasts that it is now prepared for lethal force. Sergeant Gilmore comes back into the mix with some of what we heard earlier, but he does state that the suspect is actively firing. Witness 5 comes into play here. They're traveling on I-15 South when they notice the vehicle pursuit coming up behind them. So part of this is recorded on cell phone. The video from the cell phone shows the witness driving in the number 2 lane, so the second lane to the right of center. And the Nissan Frontier is in front of him. The vehicles involved here are marked sheriff's vehicles, a Chevy Tahoe and a Dodge Charger. They have their lights and sirens activated, and they pass the witness on the left-hand side. According to this witness, and some of the video seems to back this up, there was a rifle pointed out of the front passenger window of the Nissan Frontier, and it opened fire. He describes hearing 20 gunshots. But Witness 5 is going to tell everyone after the fact he could not tell who was firing what shots. But the vehicles swerve, and additionally, 9 additional vehicles pop up in this video and in the witness statement here. They all appear to be Ford Explorers from the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department with their lights and sirens activated, following behind in pursuit of the Nissan Frontier. A bullet strikes the truck and appears to disable the radiator. It ends up with a radiator fluid leak and essentially is left out of this. At the same time that this is happening at 11:08 a.m., this is when Deputy Johnson also broadcasts that he's taking rounds and his vehicle is disabled. He says, I have rounds through the front windshield, and I believe I have a round through my engine. So he ends up with an injury to his eye, which is, I believe, is from the vehicle being hit across the windshield and splintering happening. But there is a bullet that ends up in the front passenger headrest that they find after the fact. So after this broadcast that he's going down, a deputy named Deshaun Jones broadcast, this is 17 Met 2, we just took rounds from the on-ramp at the Nisqually exit. So this is another exit that their Nissan Frontier is going past. At the time, they would have been driving under an overpass. But you can hear the sound of gunshots on his belt recording. At 11:09 a.m., the Frontier is going to be coming up to Bear Valley Road, and Deputy Kimberly Cabulion, she broadcasts taking rounds. The sounds of those gunshots are captured on Deputy Deshaun Jones's belt recorder. Deputy Kent Watson's broadcast out that they just took a round through the windshield. So there's a sound of a bullet strike to the windshield that is heard on multiple belt recordings for Watson and Gonzalez. There are injuries that end up affecting Watson. He has gunshot wounds to his right bicep and to his hands. Deputy Gonzalez is not injured in that part of the incident. So the pursuit continues past Bear Valley Road, and there's another witness driving over the overpass for 15, and she sees the pursuit and hears gunshots, and as she stops to make a turn, her car is hit by a bullet above the passenger side door, so opposite her. But that bullet ricochets into the vehicle, hits her in the face, and cuts her lip, and comes to a rest on the rear floorboard of the vehicle. Because that's so. Ricochets are interesting to me because, like, you can really have nothing to do with something and still get hit.
It sounds like you can get, like, straight on hit.
Correct. At 11:10 a.m., that other airship, which is from the sheriff's department, it is 40 King 4 as opposed to H-82, which is from the State Highway Patrol. It passes overhead and it starts recording the pursuit as the patrol vehicles are approaching the city of Hesperia. Witness number 7, they entered the interstate at Bear Valley Road. They were driving south in the number 2 lane when the Nissan Frontier sped past them. This particular witness would later tell investigators that the driver of the Nissan Frontier was a man with short hair, but that the witness did not see anyone else in the Nissan Frontier. They noted that the rear window and the rear passenger side window of the Nissan Frontier were shattered, and the witness heard a gunshot from the Frontier and saw shattered glass fly out of the already shattered rear window of the Nissan. A second gunshot fired from the Nissan Frontier came approximately a second after the first, and the witness was not sure whether the shots were directed at him or the police behind him. At this point in time, Witness 7 activated an onboard dashboard camera, and this camera records smoke coming from the shattered rear window of the Nissan Frontier. Another gunshot is heard, and the Nissan Frontier turns to the right and cuts across the number 2 and number 3 lanes of the freeway as it approaches the overpass for Main Street. So this witness 7, they veered to the right shoulder just past the Main Street Bridge, and they stop as sheriffs arrive at Witness 7's location. The Nissan then goes off of the freeway and up the on-ramp. So the first sheriff's vehicle driving off the freeway shoulder to the right, this deputy jumps out of his car and hides behind another car for cover. This deputy crouches under the driver's side door with a pistol raised as gunshots are fired. Witness 7 saw this and described seeing the deputy's actions in the following quote. And then I'm just like, oh shit, that's when I'm like, am I in danger? Because he's hiding behind a car. What is it I should be doing? A second sheriff's vehicle arrives at Witness 7's location and slows. Witness 7 wanted to leave because the suspect was starting to, quote, come down the dirt side of the on-ramp. And as he started to drive off, a deputy stops her patrol vehicle, and Witness 7 moves forward, but ends up tapping the back of the patrol vehicle, putting the car in reverse. And he says, because I seen him coming and there were gunshots, so I was like, best thing for me to do would be to get the fuck out of the way. He described the sound as suddenly devolving into just continuous gunshots the whole time. He also stated he could not tell who was shooting at who, but there were multiple different calibers being shot for sure. He says it wasn't all the same caliber. So Witness 7 estimated for investigators that he heard 20 to 30 rounds being fired before he started to pull out. And Witness 7 wanted to drive around this deputy. So the bullets were coming. It's just instant panic. The deputy came around her car with her gun and waved at Witness 7 to just keep going. Witness 7 said, so I didn't know whether to get out and hide behind her car, but I didn't want anything to happen to me getting out, so that's when I just put it in reverse. As he drove past the deputy, Witness 7 saw 3 patrol vehicles driving up the on-ramp. So where you would get on the highway, they're now going up. And once he passed the deputy and continued forward, Witness 7 said he heard what sounded like at least 100 rounds. It was insane. So around 11:11 a.m., Deputy Johnson broadcasts again and says he's weaving in and out of traffic, actively firing. This is around the time the Nissan Frontier would have been driving under that overpass. The Nissan Frontier drives across the west shoulder of the freeway, over a dirt embankment, making a U-turn onto the other side and going up the on-ramp. So that's what the witness was describing. And the San Bernardino airship helicopter reports that it is set up for lethal force at this time. So this next part is going to be taking place in the seconds because we're not having minutes pass while this is going on. At 11 o'clock and 11 minutes and 43 seconds, The helicopter for the California Highway Patrol starts recording the Nissan Frontier passing under the Main Street overpass of Interstate 15. 11 seconds later, they record the Nissan Frontier driving onto the dirt shoulder. And 2 seconds after that, the Nissan Frontier is recorded going up onto the southbound freeway on-ramp. And 2 seconds after that, it's recorded driving the wrong way on the southbound freeway on-ramp. So we're now a wrong direction driver. And the images for this, I believe, are directly from some kind of, not just a camera, but potentially a scope where they have crosshairs on them with an X in the middle. I hope these guys do not have a military aircraft, but
It could also be like just to focus the camera, right?
it could be, yeah.
It could be a multi-use situation.
Right. So over the next 10 seconds, they record the Nissan Frontier driving onto this dirt embankment, which is between Main Street, this on-ramp, and Interstate 15. So it's kind of the side of a highway. Does that make sense?
Yes.
At 11, 12, and 10 seconds, the airship records them driving fully onto the dirt embankment leading uphill. And we have multiple accounts from the people on board the helicopters. And this is the first one we get a name. It says that Technical Flight Officer TFO Jonathan Holt, who's from the Sheriff's Department, he sees shots fired from the Frontier. We have witness accounts of this from Witness 7 as well. And at this point, deputies from various vehicles return fire to the Frontier, which continue until the conclusion of this incident. 8 seconds later, the Nissan Frontier failed to drive onto the Main Street overpass. It reverses back down the embankment like it's headed back towards the interstate. Shots continue to be fired from the Nissan Frontier, and the bullets that are fired by deputies, they're striking the ground around the Nissan Frontier as it rolls to a stop on I-15's southwest dirt shoulder. So we're no longer on the on-ramp. We're no longer on the interstate, and we didn't make it to Main Street. We're kind of between the on-ramp and the interstate in a big pile of dirt.
It doesn't even look like from the picture. So for one thing, it's horrifying that the Main Street overpass is completely full of civilian vehicles. Okay.
Yep.
And it doesn't look to me like there was ever even, it looks like there's a wall, a median. Like, I don't feel like it could have gotten over that.
No, there's definitely, it's got to be some kind of service ditch or something, but it's stuck at this point. There's nowhere for it to go.
That's right. It's just interesting that the report says it didn't get on there. Well, I'm not even, was it trying? Like, I don't know what it was doing.
I'm not sure that it could, but they do say in that same time frame that it's reversing onto the shoulder. It's facing against traffic, but towards like the confronting vehicles that have been following it during this pursuit.
Right.
At 11, 12, and 40 seconds, the Nissan Frontier stops going in reverse. And at 5 seconds later, the Nissan Frontier drives towards the deputies who are parked along the interstate. And it looks like they're on the other side of that sort of concrete barrier, which might be very small because I'm looking at it from above.
Well, and as you go forward, I'm confused as to where they end up being, but like at one point it is parked over it looks like. So
Yeah.
I think it's two different things, but either way, go ahead.
So it's hard to see the topographical from above, but it just, we're on the side of a busy highway, a very busy highway. Just a couple seconds later, as the Nissan Frontier is driving towards the deputies parked along the highway, bullets are striking the ground around the Nissan Frontier, fired by the deputies. It rolls to a stop on the shoulder, and over the broadcast, the Sheriff's Department's helicopter and the guys on board there say, shots are fired, shots are fired. He's continuing to shoot at the deputies. Deputy Johnson is behind his patrol vehicle, crouched behind the left front wheel. His belt recording captures the sound of gunfire, and he says, passenger, get out. Passenger, get out, get out, get out, get out. Passenger, get out. So we have two helicopters overhead and so many cars. I cannot explain to you how many cars, like not just the deputies, but also the civilians. It is very difficult to understand what's happening. There are still gunshots flying. But a second after he puts this call out, Savannah Graziano gets out of the front passenger door of the Nissan Frontier. She is wearing a sweatshirt, a tactical vest, and a helmet. Between the following 2 seconds, which would be 11, 12, and 46 seconds, and 11, 12, and 48 seconds, Savannah moves towards these deputies. She puts her hands and knees on the ground, and she crouches. Deputy Johnson is heard on the belt recorder saying, hey, 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 come here, come to me, come, walk. And because of all the chaos, this is the only place it's picked up is on his belt recorder. So she rises up. She's been out of the vehicle for about 10 seconds, and she begins moving towards Deputy Johnson. At 11:13, as she's moving towards the deputy calling towards her, with her hands raised, deputies fire gunshots and bullet strikes hit the ground around her. And on the belt recorder, Deputy Johnson can be heard saying, hey, 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 stop shooting her. He's in the car. She's okay. Stop. He's in the car. But apparently no one else heard him. And 3 seconds later, Savannah Graziano fell to the ground. She appeared to attempt to rise back up, and another bullet strike landed near her lower left leg. She stopped moving, and she remained on the ground in a prone position. Approximately 1 minute and 10 seconds had elapsed from the time the Nissan Freeway drove past the Main Street overpass and left the freeway until Savannah Graziano fell to the ground. During that time, according to the investigation, 199 rounds were fired by 21 San Bernardino Sheriff's deputies. At this point in time, deputies, including Deputy Johnson, approached the Nissan Frontier to clear it. Deputy Johnson reached into the front right passenger side of the Nissan Frontier. He pulled out a Daniel Defense rifle, placing that rifle on the ground. And he declared that Anthony Graziano was dead. At 11:13 a.m., Deputy Jones broadcast that he was starting medical aid. And after the Nissan Frontier was cleared, several deputies performed life-saving measures on Savannah Graziano. One of the deputies exclaimed, "She has a plate carrier. I don't know what she has underneath." And Deputy Johnson responded, "She has a knife on her," and a small folding knife was recovered. At 11:15 a.m., Deputy Johnson broadcast they were attempting life-saving measures for Savannah Graziano and that Anthony Graziano was dead. At 11:16 a.m., Hesperia Fire Department, which that's the main street is of Hesperia, the town, they arrive and they take over the life-saving measures. At 11:25 a.m., Sergeant Tony Romero broadcast that Savannah Graziano was going to be transported to DVMC, which is the Desert Valley Medical Center. At 11:41 a.m., the ambulance transporting Savannah arrives, and at 11:52 a.m., she's pronounced dead. So, sticking with our hostage-taking theme, we have a 15-year-old girl taken hostage by her father, which, by all accounts...
After he had killed her mother, right?
Right, yeah. He is violent. He has killed her mother. But she is ultimately killed by sheriff's deputies attempting to stop a high-speed pursuit. Oh, man. So... she has gunshot wounds to her right and left chest. She has gunshot wounds to her left flank, which is like the side of your butt, the center of her back directly between her shoulder blades. She has multiple gunshot wounds to her left calf.
So to me, what unfolded was you've got one officer, you've got a lot of chaos, a lot of noise. You got one officer telling her to come to him. Nobody else realizes that that officer is telling her to come to him. And they think that she is going to the officer to do something.
Right.
And they all shoot her.
Yeah, they shoot and kill her.
And his belt is the only thing that picked up the audio. I don't think anybody could hear anything he was saying.
Yeah, I mean, this is chaos.
It is. It doesn't excuse the fact that, like, what are they doing here? What is the difference in, okay, they're going after a homicide suspect who has a kidnapped 15-year-old daughter with him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And she had on tactical gear. We're going to get into a little bit more of, I guess, of the information, like, you know, was she participating in this? Does it matter?
Right.
And ultimately, she had no choice but to follow what the law enforcement officer was telling her to do, which was to come to him. Okay. And then she's shot and killed by cops, by law enforcement.
Right.
Right. And so this should have never happened. Right.
Yeah, no, it should not have happened. And like, there's a lot of drugs in Anthony Graziano's system. He has amphetamine, methamphetamine, morphine, and hydrocodone in his system. So he's got a lot. He's on a lot. I think it also said cannabis in there.
I think this is one of the worst case scenarios I've ever seen.
Yeah, and like, it's so interesting to me. So ultimately, the end result of this report is they make 4 major recommendations. One is that everybody should have body-worn cameras. One is to install digital in-car video systems, which include like multiple cameras. I don't know if people know what those are, but I'll explain them in a second. Another was to refresh for the entire sheriff's department the incident command and officer communication training, and also to refresh, this is the primary recommendation, was to refresh the field of fire training. Field of fire training is so that you understand where your bullets are going when you're shooting. And there were multiple bystanders hit by multiple bullets that we will never know exactly where they came from, because some of them were hit by ricochets and some of the bullets were lost in the insanity of all this. But I think those 4 recommendations are highly necessary. But like, this entire family, and I know there's surviving family members, and I'm very cognizant of that as I tell this story. This is a hostage situation, though. She was taken hostage. There was a murder, and then there was a murder, and then there was a murder. One of them seems to be a justifiable homicide, meaning the driver of the vehicle being Anthony Graziano and him causing all this chaos. But ultimately, he murdered Tracy Martinez, so that's accounted for. But Savannah Graziano's death is also an unjustifiable homicide.
She was murdered by law enforcement.
Correct. And I will say this, they're very careful throughout this to not give you an exact, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Definitive statement.
Yeah, they just offer points of improvement, right?
Right.
You know what's really interesting to me is they go through a lot of trouble to try to show that she was participating.
I know.
And it doesn't matter if she was participating. She was 15.
Yeah, they put a lot of video and photos into these reports where she appeared to be handling guns. But that's the thing, like, that's because, like, we are in an environment where dad has a ton of guns. And ultimately, him having a ton of guns means that she's going to be exposed to, like, weapons. And some families choose to teach the kids how to use them because they feel like they'll be more responsible.
Well, but also when your father has gone over the deep end and shot your mother, if he tells you to pick up a gun and shoot it, like, you're going to have to do that.
Right.
But at the end of the situation, she was, without question, she was approaching because she was doing what she was being told to do by law enforcement.
Yeah.
She was cooperating. She wasn't trying to get away. And I find it sickening that they're like, oh, she had plates in her vest, which, by the way, it ended up the vest didn't have plates. I don't really know what that means.
So the vest is just a piece of fabric.
Right. And without the plates, it's nothing.
Yeah, the plates are the armored part.
Okay. And then they're like, oh, she's got, knives on her, which she does, but.
They're folded in her pocket.
Exactly. And she was not armed. She was not an armed person. She was not a threat. The problem here was the communication. And they killed a 15-year-old girl who I imagine she had just gone through hell. I don't know.
She saw her mom killed. I mean, I guess she could be a participant, but it doesn't matter to me. She's 15.
No, it doesn't matter. This in-depth investigation report that they did, I'm not really sure what they were trying to get at I guess they were trying to show like it was more justified because they thought she was shooting at them.
Yeah.
It didn't matter though, because at the end of the day, you have evidence. She was out of the vehicle. She was listening. She was compliant with what one officer was telling her, and the other officers weren't keeping up with what was going on.
Yeah.
And they thought she was approaching in a hostile manner. And he tried to tell them. And after he said, hey, she's fine, don't shoot her, she was killed. Yeah. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Do we ever find out, like, why nobody heard that? Why they didn't stop?
No, they chalk it up. So it's interesting. Okay. They give these officers a lot of benefit of the doubt that they do not give to Savannah or to Anthony. And I'm not saying Anthony should have gotten any, because he was basically witness committing a pretty cold-blooded murder of Tracy Martinez. So Savannah seems to be collateral damage from that. But in the course of things, you discovered that Anthony Graziano was severely mentally ill. He also had been out of work and was addicted to various types of medications. I am not saying any of that is an excuse for his behavior, but I encourage people, like I always encourage rabbit holes. I think they're a big deal. If you go and read the Graziano report, which is under AB 1506, and the report is available on the Office of the Attorney General in California's website. So this is an official report. It's a lot of pages, and you can do a lot of other research from what you find in that report. They give these officers the benefit of the doubt. They do not give any benefit of the doubt to Savannah. And I don't like situations like that, because the whole report leans very heavily against Anthony Graziano, who is not here to defend himself. Not saying that any of what he did was justifiable. So don't mistake my words for like justification or a defense of him. But for us to understand situations like this in the future, I promise you, the dash cam system in the car ain't going to do it. The body camera ain't going to do it. It's understanding the people, and they do put forth some effort. But in that report that I've harped about related to this case, came out in March of this year, they are very clearly gathering facts to slant against the Graziano family.
Without question.
And all they're really doing is justifying the fact that their officers are basically stormtroopers, not the kind from the Nazi world, the kind from Star Wars, where they shoot a bunch of little bullets and they don't go where they intended them to. And they hit all kinds of people on the sidelines and other people's cars and buildings that they weren't designed to.
Which is all completely irrelevant to the fact that, like, all the cops that weren't talking to her were shooting at her. Like, they were shooting at her. She wasn't hit by a stray bullet.
No, she was hit multiple times.
And so they missed, like, the point, right? They saw her going towards other law enforcement officers, because the guy that was talking to her, he's not standing out from anywhere. They probably couldn't even tell that there was communication happening, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times my observation on things that have been observable is that law enforcement, most officers are scared.
Correct.
in these types of situations, and they want to protect each other. And what I've always thought about that is, well, like, if you're so scared, what are you doing there, right?
Yeah.
For one thing, because a 15-year-old with no weapon is clearly not going to hurt another officer. And just because you didn't know that doesn't make it okay for you to kill her.
Yeah.
And I've always thought to myself, if you are in a situation as a law enforcement officer where you can't think of anything else to do besides shooting the person that's advancing, especially when it's a child, right?
Yes.
You probably shouldn't be there.
Yep.
And there's all kinds of things that could have happened, like in the meantime, especially since she was clearly out of the vehicle. She was clearly, well, I don't know how clear it was. It was at least clear to the guy that was talking to her that she was going to do whatever they said.
Yeah, like he knew. That's why he kept issuing commands. But unfortunately, like even he is in the wrong here. Like he pulled her into the line of fire by like acting like this was like a typical traffic stop. He kind of fell back on parts of his training that weren't designed for this situation. And like, so this is a weird position for me to be in because I do not like sit here and go, oh, they murdered Anthony Graziano. Anthony Graziano killed his wife. He brought some of this on himself and Savannah. But we have sort of the ultimate screw up here with law enforcement not really knowing how to handle this situation. Turning it into a high-speed pursuit was a terrible idea.
Well, okay, but it happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look through this, I feel like it's possible like they still didn't learn their lesson. There's actually pictures of the kids holding guns, and like they're trying to justify a million times over that it was okay what they did.
Yeah. They're trying to say, man with gun, danger, bad, people died, we're okay.
Well, right, and it's never going to be okay.
No.
Just because you make an 84-page document that gives all this information and you're trying to, it makes it worse, actually. Because instead of taking responsibility and saying, under no circumstances whatsoever should a child ever be shot to death as she's approaching an officer that's telling her to come to him.
Right. And I get the chaos happens, but man, you got to figure, that's the whole incident command thing. I understand. You got to back off the helicopters. You got to figure out what's going on. Somebody's got to be the brave one that like takes charge. And Johnson was trying to do it in the wrong way.
Right. And it really is very sad. I remember when this happened, there were already like crazy things with law enforcement going on anyway.
Yeah.
And this was extraordinarily sad, I think, that she died. And do we know how the dad died?
Bullets.
Right, but
You mean did he kill himself?
yes.
He died due to a gunshot wound to the head. He suffered gunshot wounds to his left shoulder, left lower back, and his thigh. So when the coroners get involved in this, which is pretty quickly, from the scientific analysis that they do on all of this, they don't say he shot himself, but there's a lot of guns happening here.
Because I immediately thought he shot himself. I don't know why I thought that, because you're right, there was a lot of shooting happening, but he may have gotten hit. But I imagine, and see that, my point being that if he just shot himself when he realized he was trapped, right?
Right.
You know that the 15-year-old was like horrified.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, so, okay. How they find him is interesting. When they pull up on him and they start taking pictures and then they take his body away, this is the description. They say that Mr. Graziano wore a tan plate carrier, which contained 4 ammunition magazines, a black antenna, and a black tourniquet. He also had a handheld radio on his left hip connected to an earpiece. So he's listening to the scanner. In his pockets, he had 9mm cartridges, 2 black handgun magazines, a black folding knife, and a rifle magazine. All of these magazines contained ammunition. And as previously noted, he had a 9mm Glock handgun in his waistband with a cartridge chambered. Very dangerous way to carry a gun. They observed the injuries, which included a gunshot wound to his right, to the right side of his head, gunshot wound to his left shoulder, 2 gunshot wounds to his lower left back. They said they collected a gunshot residue kit. I don't know why they did that, because obviously he had been firing and firing and firing. But so they go through the guns, they try them all. Everything appeared to be working, like all of the guns were working. They don't indicate that he shot Savannah in any way, but they don't come to a clear conclusion as to how he died in terms of how they present it to us.
Okay. Well, I feel pretty confident that he probably shot himself. I don't know why I feel that way, but
I wouldn't doubt that. They do a massive analysis of the shooter's position within the car. And this is like, don't be fooled by this. You should go read this. I'm going to say that one more time. But what they're really doing there is they're just trying to prove to you that Savannah had to be shooting.
and I think that's wrong. I think what they're presenting, I mean, I'm not saying that it's wrong, like technically, like it could be right. I don't know. It just doesn't match her.
Right.
Because you've got she was, to me, she looks small. I mean, she doesn't look like an 8-year-old, but she doesn't, I can't get a great grasp of whether or not people from a distance would be able to tell that she was a kid.
Well, anytime they leave the size out of an autopsy, it's because they're little.
Well, she was 5'2". We know that from the Amber Alert.
110 pounds, and he was also 5'4" and 140 pounds. So they go to great lengths to really try and convince their audience that we did the right thing because we tried to duplicate all this and had to be that Savannah was shooting.
And to me, that's a waste. They shouldn't have done that. It doesn't matter if she was shooting or not. I guarantee you she was compliant at the end. So she wasn't doing it because she wanted to be doing it. And the answer to that is rehabilitation, right? It's not shooting them. But I think I saw the officer who was having her come to him. I think he was squatted down. Like, so it didn't, I feel like everybody just didn't see the communication happening.
Yeah.
They just didn't realize he was actually telling her to come, and they thought that those officers were in danger. It's not okay that happened, that they killed her. But at the same time, it's sort of like, well, what were you guys doing there? Because you didn't take the homicide suspect into custody.
Right.
And you killed the Amber Alert subject.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe no law enforcement intervention would have been better in this situation.
Yeah. And so one of the other things that like they did along the way here, they do try to like recreate how everything would have been fired from the vehicle and what would have been happening within the vehicle. But I noticed, like, did you see the photographs of all this? There's also a video of it. Nobody's wearing tactical vests or helmets like they're wearing in the car. Like, they're only wearing the little Tyvek suits. So their reach and, like, their ability are different than what they're thinking.
But none of it matters.
No, it doesn't. Everybody... Like, I guess they're doing it from the perspective of, like, do we have to take one for the public here and, like, fire some cops, which they were never going to do.
I think that they're also, now, hear me out here. I think they're also trying to give these cops that killed this little girl or this young woman, like, justification. Because think of living with that.
Oh, well, I mean, I hate to say this, like I deal with law enforcement every day. I'll just say it this way. If this type of situation, you are one of the cops that fired more than 15 rounds, which there are quite a few of, maybe it's time that you did something else within the police department. Maybe you're moving to a support position. Maybe you're training. Maybe you're doing something other than firing your gun.
Right, because at the end of the day, what were they doing? Just killing people, right? I mean, that's all that ended up happening. They didn't save the Amber Alert subject. They didn't get the homicide suspect. They were just chasing and then killing.
Yeah, and like we have to move, and I get that this guy is whatever. You have lethal force in the sky pretty quickly. You've got at least 20 minutes there. Like you could take out a tire. And so, I mean, I'm sure someone will say, but we didn't want to kill the girl. Well, you did. So taking out the tire maybe gave her a fighting chance.
Well, I was going to say, like, there is absolutely, like, no, like, you can't even reason it because at the end, they literally, she's walking to be, like, taken into custody or whatever, and they shot her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's ultimately what they did. And like, you know, she was the hostage here. She was also the daughter here. Like it's a complex situation.
But as far as law enforcement should have known, she was also the subject of an Amber Alert.
Right. And like,
And that's what's important, right?
right. And I'm not trying to trash law enforcement for this. They didn't know how to handle this situation and they don't address it with the recommendations.
This report is probably just about the worst thing I think they could have done.
I think it was the wrong way to go. Yeah.
I don't even need to do all this testing and research and everything else. Any sort of law enforcement incident that ends with an Amber Alert subject being killed by law enforcement is a failure.
So I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to wrap up my thoughts on this. I don't think anybody out there knew this report had been released. Did you know this report had been released?
No.
And like, you know what I mean? Like, so when this happened, it flashed everywhere on the evening news. And then this is allegedly the justification for all of it.
Which they were not justified.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever, I mean, is anybody ever going to talk you into it?
No, not on this one.
I'm never going to be talked into it.
No, not on this one. There's some changes that need to be made to the structure of this department. Unfortunately, 3 years have passed and the department structure has already changed. And, you know, hopefully there'll never be another incident like this in that department where they have to coordinate between two agencies and do all the things they had to do here. But at the end of the day, like, this was terrible. This was a terrible hostage taking that started with a terrible murder and ended with a terrible murder.
Yeah, it's really, really bad. And that type of situation, it makes you start to wonder, because part of the problem with all of the law enforcement involved deaths, right, of people who are unarmed, is does what they're trying to do outweigh the person's right to live, essentially, right?
Right.
And in this case, I say no, it didn't, because without law enforcement chasing this guy, he's not running.
Yeah.
So I get where they tried really hard to justify this, but in my opinion, it would have been better for them just to take responsibility and have skipped all of these ridiculous, like, excuses.
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably talk about this for days. This is one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen happen to a young person, because she was already clearly in a terrible situation at home. I don't know what efforts were being made to save her there. It looks like some were being made because of the amount of information they throw at us in this report that pretty clearly comes from family members and, you know, other police involvement. But at the end of the day, like, she's basically assassinated. It's written off as justifiable, and everybody kind of goes home.
Special consideration was given to True Crime Excess by LabrottieCreations.com. If you have a moment in your favorite app, please go on and give us a review or a 5-star rating. It helps us get noticed in the crowd. This is True Crime XS. True Crime Excess is brought to you by John and Meg. It's written, produced, edited, and posted by John and Meg. You can always support True Crime Excess through patreon.com, or if you have a story you'd like them to cover, you can reach them at truecrimexcess.com. Thank you for joining us.